Are you doing the first reading bit, Gareth, or am I doing that reading bit?
Oh, we don't need to read because this is recording, so that people will see this afterwards.
Oh, okay.
So if we haven't had any formal apologies, so if we go into the first item on the agenda, which is the appointment of the new independent chair. Obviously, the previous chair has stood down following the end of his termination of his office in March. So can I invite nominations then for the new independent chair of Standards Committee?
Can I nominate myself, having been the vice chair last year?
Yeah, no problem. Is there a seconder?
I will second that one.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Thank you. Everybody in favour?
Yeah.
Please show. Okay, in that case, Mr. Mitchell is duly appointed as the new independent chair. So can I hand over the chair for the rest of the meeting?
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, everybody. As I say, this is my second term of this, so I'm really looking forward to getting and working with everybody once again. So the next item on the agenda continues on the appointment routes. So we need to appoint now a vice chair, please. If I could have some nominations for a vice chair. I can't see any hands or any comments. It's not that bad a role.
Can I just ask, Andrew, is there a need for two independent
Yes.
members? So we've got one, is that correct? So would we need to select from another independent member or not?
Yes, the chair and vice chair are both independent members.
Okay.
I'll put my hand up.
Sorry, I just wanted to say my term ends now in October, so obviously I'm not going to express an interest.
Did I catch your voice then, Kerry?
Yes. I'll put myself forward if you like.
Yeah, I'll second Kerry.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so all in favour?
Yep.
Yeah, looks like a full house. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome, Kerry, to that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, let's move on down through the agenda for us. Declarations of interest, please, for anybody that they feel they may have in any way.
No.
Okay, thank you. Pam, are you taking the minutes or
I am indeed.
Yeah. I think there can be a no declarations from anybody. Minutes of the previous meeting on the 7th of January. So they are on pages 3 to 6 as you go down through the agenda. I'm not going to go through them verbatim, as I'm sure you've all had a chance to have a little look, but I will go through for anything for accuracy on page 3, page 4, page 5, and then finally on to page 6 from there. Okay, we can take those as signed if you would for me, Pam. Matters arising from them. I couldn't see anything that was there that jumped out at me. I know we're going to talk about succession planning, which is mentioned, but that's a separate item on the agenda for us. So no matters arising from there, thank you. Item 6 on the agenda, which is succession planning, an update of the appointment of an independent member. So I'm not sure whether you're going to do this, Pam, or Gareth's going to do it, because I know Pam's done a lot of work on it. Just put it over to one of our officials to update us, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to do this, Chair. Well, as you know, following the decision taken last time, we advertised for 2 vacancies. Both the vacancy because of the previous chair's term of office coming to an end in March, and Mrs. Britton has mentioned that her term of office comes to an end in October. So we've advertised for 2 vacancies provisionally. We left it open on the basis of whether we'd make 2 appointments, depending on the quality of the shortlist. So we've advertised the vacancy. We've advertised on the website and in the local newspapers. I'm pleased to say we had 14 applications. and we've now managed to whittle that down to 5 people who've got the appropriate background in terms of public sector involvement and knowledge of ethical standards. So the next stage, obviously, is for the interview panel then to meet to interview the 5 shortlisted candidates. And I think you were talking to Pam earlier about fixing convenient dates for that towards the end of April.
Yes, we were. Yes. Okay, so we'll obviously, Pam will also let us have those dates and get them sorted out, and hopefully look forward to the 15th of July meeting with 2 new potential members for us.
Well, it'll be 1 by then, because Mrs. Britton, obviously her term of office doesn't expire until October.
Okay.
Now, so we need 1 immediate person to step into the Phil Westwood role. What I would suggest, though, if you've got a second candidate that's also suitable on the day, that we hold those back in reserve, if you like, and appoint that person then to take up office come October. So rather than go through this recruitment process for a second time in the autumn, we'll interview now and appoint 1 immediately, and then maybe provisionally appoint somebody to take up the office then in October.
I think that makes more sense, with rather than trying to put a panel together again. We get it done and dusted in 1 go, the job's done, and we're ready set then for the rest of the year and going forward.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Gareth, and thank you, Pam, for your work. I know that it's not an easy job. It must be like herding cats trying to get dates off people. So, and I'm including myself in that as well. For all of that. Okay, thank you. Thank you from that. Okay, item 7 on the agenda is the Employees Code of Conduct. Gareth, this has been out before to people, hasn't it? I seem to remember this from before.
It's a few years back since the last one was brought to Standards Committee, which is why it's on the agenda now. I think the last revision goes back to about 2018, 2019.
I knew I'd seen it before.
And it was brought to you for information then. We had a recent corporate audit, and they picked up the fact that the Employee Code of Conduct needed to be updated in terms of changes of legislation and other things in the last sort of couple of years. So HR have taken the opportunity to bring this up to date now. They've consulted with the staff and the trade unions, and it's been through the employee joint liaison group. So it's all been agreed with the recognised trade unions. But as is customary, we bring it to Standards Committee just for an oversight, and invite you to formally recommend it to full council, and then it's included as part of the council's constitution. So that's why it's before you today. I mean, hopefully you've got no comments on the substance there in terms of what it entails. It's really more for information, because of course this complements on the officer side what you have on the member code of conduct.
Yeah.
It replicates in terms of the ethical standards and other behaviours that are expected of members. This is what's incorporated in the staff contracts of employment. So it's the other side of the coin in terms of that ethical framework, if you like. So that's why we bring it to Standards Committee, because you've got a role in terms of monitoring both the member code of conduct and how it links in with officer relationships. Because if you remember in the past, you've developed this protocol in terms of how officers and members should work together.
Yeah.
So that sort of fits in the middle, if you like, in terms of the linkage between the councillor code and this code. So that's why it's there before you today, and happy to deal with any comments. My screen has gone funny now.
From myself, Chair, I've got nothing to comment on this. I mean, if it's been put together by a professional, certainly HR in consultation with the unions, then I've got no further comment. I know whether my fellow scrutiny members have any comment on it.
No.
Sorry, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's absolutely right and proper that council employees are covered and supported in the same way. That's why bringing legislation like this in is so important, and that there are no grey areas. When people know where they stand, then it's easier for them to stand. So I think it's somewhat overdue, but now we've got it. Let's consolidate it, embrace it, welcome it. because it really is. It is something that employees can be supported by and feel stronger by, rather than something, you know, that is a difficulty for them. So I welcome this introduction, and I just wish we'd had it a couple of years ago. Thank you.
Councillor Wilcox. Anyone else? Any comments? In that case, we've got it as duly noted. And sorry, sorry.
Just to say, no problem at all. Echo what Councillor Wilcox says. I think it's helpful for not just from a standards point of view from the council, but also from an employee view. Refreshingly complete as well. It's a very comprehensive set of standards. A good piece of work.
Thank you. Chair, perhaps you would, sorry, Chair, I'm the Chair. Gareth, perhaps if you, through your network, perhaps feedback to those that have contributed to it and just say thank you very much from us here.
Yeah, certainly do that. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. And anyone else before we move on? Okay, so if we can embrace that, do I need to present it at the next council meeting, or will that be done on my behalf?
It'll go through on the minutes. So what we'll do
Lovely.
is take that as a recommendation from Standards Committee, and when we take the minutes to full council.
So our recommendation is to adopt this from there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. The item 8 on the agenda is another code of conduct, the revised guidance. This is the Welsh Government one. Gareth, this one?
Yeah, this was circulated previously. I asked Pam to send it round because it was a very short turnaround period in terms of the consultation. This is the revised guidance that the Ombudsman was consulting on in terms of the code of conduct for city councillors and for community councillors. There were two bits of guidance, and because the consultation period closed before this meeting, then we did send it out to you just for information. So I thought it would be useful to bring it back before you, just so you could have a look at it formally. We also sent it out to all the clerks of the community councils in Newport, so they could respond, and nothing came back from them. So as far as I'm aware, there are no sort of comments in terms of the changes. As I said to you previously, it doesn't really change much in terms of the substance of the guidance. What they have taken the opportunity to do is include more practical examples at the end.
Yeah,
So
I did see those.
examples based on previous cases that have gone to standards committees and case panels about breaches of the code of conduct and the various sanctions that have been imposed. So I think that's a useful guide to councillors in terms of the practicalities of the code. So it seemed useful to me in terms of more practical guidance.
Yeah, and I've looked at some of the examples, and yeah, you're quite right on there about just some of the areas that you mightn't think of normally. And this has gone for both our local and our community councillors. Again, yeah.
Yes.
I think I just want to echo what Councillor Wilcox said earlier on about the code of conduct for our paid officials, and now we have a code of conduct for our councillors and our local councils. So it all seems to tie in quite nicely together. Everybody is left knowing where they stand, hopefully, and hopefully it's not used ever used within the council for us from there. Any of my fellow colleagues, any comments before we?
No,
Councillor Wilcox?
Just a quick one. When you sent the stuff out to the community clerks, Gareth, did you ensure that they did in fact have the authority? Sorry, that's my Jackie.
Well, we sent it to the clerks with the recommendation that they consult with their community councils before they formulate any response. So we use the clerk as the point of contact. So Pam has got lists of contact details for all 14 clerks, and we just send it to them as the point of contact. It's up to them to get authority from their councils if they want to submit any response to the Ombudsman. Like I said, we're not aware of any comments that were fed back, so we assume that they were happy with it.
Community councils have been in such sharp relief these past couple of months with Jackie Weaver and Handforth Parish Council. I just wanted to check we were all right as well.
Yeah, we haven't done a Jackie Weaver, I can assure you. So the one extra thing I would say, Chair, I mentioned it in the cover report. This is the Ombudsman's guidance on the current code of conduct. Now, the current code of conduct, the Welsh Code of Conduct, the last review was back in 2016.
All
And
right.
the original version of this code dates back to 2008, I think, originally. So just to let you know that Welsh Government are looking again at this code of conduct. And if there is to be any review or change, they're looking to introduce that before next May, before the local council elections. So yeah, just to flag that up, this is guidance on the current code as it stands at the moment. So they are looking at the code and whether it needs updating since the last revision. So this may be liable to change between now and next May. And if it is, we'll certainly bring that back before you.
Lovely, thank you. Do we just need to note this has been noted by us?
Yeah, it's just for information. It's purely to note this report.
Chair, through you,
Yes.
Gareth, are there any teeth being proposed for the new codes of conduct for community councils in particular? I see
Any what, sorry?
teeth. Enforced legislation. Because I seem to recall we've had some of the community councils not signing up to it in the past.
No, this is compulsory, this code of conduct.
Okay.
So it applies whether you don't have to adopt it, or rather, well, you do it. It applies automatically, and all community councillors have to comply with this code of conduct, and the sanctions are set out in the legislation. What some of the community councils didn't sign up to was the local protocols in terms of dealing with low-level complaints locally, which is a separate issue. But the statutory code applies to all community councils and community council laws. And the sanctions are set out in the legislation, whether it's sanctions that the standards committee can impose, or whether it's sanctions that the adjudication panel through their case panels can impose. So that's always been there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move on from that one?
No.
Okay, I think it's back to you again, Gareth. This time for any complaints that you may have received.
Right. Well, I think last time we reported there were 2 ongoing complaints that have been sent to the Ombudsman. They are still ongoing. I've had no notification of any decision yet as to whether they are being investigated. Now since then, we've had 8 further complaints. 1 about a city councillor and 7 about community councils that have gone to the Ombudsman. The one involving the city councillor has not been accepted for investigation because that was simply about not replying to correspondence. As far as the Ombudsman was concerned, that wasn't a breach of the members' code. So that one we can deal with. There were 3, I think, or 4 rather. 4 of the community council complaints have also been rejected for further investigation on the basis that either they weren't breaches of the code or they weren't serious enough to merit an investigation. But there are 3 complaints involving community councils that are still open to investigation. I mean, the one interesting point I think that comes out of the one of the cases that wasn't accepted for investigation. This was an allegation where a community councillor had been abusive to a local resident. It was outside of a community council meeting, but the allegation was that there was some sort of abusive behaviour taking place. Now, the Ombudsman took the view that it wasn't serious enough to merit investigation. On the basis that it wasn't in the public interest. Right. So I think that may be an indication of what view the Ombudsman takes in terms of the types of complaints that are serious enough to warrant a full investigation. Because all right, this behaviour took place outside of a community council meeting, but as we've said before, the obligation in the code of conduct to show respect and consideration to others applies at all times, which the ombudsman accepted. So technically, there was a breach of the code by a failure to show respect, but because it wasn't in relation to their duties as a community councillor, he didn't think it was in the public interest. Now, that said, I understand he'll be writing to the 2 community councillors concerned to remind them of their obligations under the code, but nevertheless, he didn't think it was serious enough to warrant a full investigation. So I think that gives you an indication of the test that he applies, if you like, in terms of whether he investigates. You know, firstly, is there a breach of the code? And if there is it serious enough or in the public interest to justify a full investigation?
Okay. Thank you for that, Gareth.
So yeah, unfortunately, we've had quite a few more complaints, a lot involving community councils, coming back to Councillor Wilcox's previous point. And we've had quite a few changes in some of the clerks leaving office. So
right.
there appear to be issues in community council, shall we say, at the moment. But we'll have to see what happens with the 4 outstanding complaints.
Okay, thank you. I can't quite see, but is it Councillor Davis has got a hand?
Yes. If I could speak on this matter, please. Our community council, Bishton Community Council, made several complaints to the ombudsman about the conduct of councillors. It was towards the clerk, and it was a couple of months ago that the complaint was made. And after the clerk followed it after repeated questions, it appears that the emails had gone into the junk mail. That's why they weren't investigated. I understand they're being investigated now, but can something be put in place to stop this happening again?
Are we talking about the junk mails in the Ombudsman's office?
As far as I know, yes, because it was going on 3 and 4 months. We hadn't heard anything, and then after repeated requests by the clerk of the new clerk by what was happening, it was found that they'd gone into the junk or spam mail. So should this be something that's tightened up?
Well, if you go onto the Ombudsman website, there's an official online complaint form that you can send directly. So I don't understand why that's happened. The other thing is, obviously you've given some information now, but that was the complaint that I mentioned last time. So I know the Ombudsman has received that particular complaint. It was already in the pipeline. So I'm not sure where who suggested that this had gone to junk mail, because I was aware of the complaint, and it was one of those that I reported last time.
Okay, well, we haven't heard anything. The people who complained haven't heard anything from the Ombudsman.
Right, that's not unusual. I have to say it does take the Ombudsman quite a long time to get the complaint should be acknowledged fairly quickly. What tends to happen then, there's a period of about 6 to 8 weeks when they go through this first stage filtering process. If, as in the cases I've reported now, they take a view that there's no case to answer and then they're not going to investigate, you would normally get a decision there within 6 to 8 weeks. And then they would send a copy of their decision to me, and I report it to you on an anonymized basis, obviously, because we have to maintain confidentiality, because these complaints aren't being investigated. But I'm notified then of the outcome, and normally it's between 6 to 8 weeks in terms of that first decision. However, if they decide there's something there that merits a further investigation, well, that can take many months to conclude. In fact, some of them I've known to take 8 to 12 months before they get a final decision, depending on the complexity and how many people they have to interview. So I wouldn't read much into that.
How would we know if it's progressing or not? Or how would the people know who sent the complaint and know
they should have had a formal acknowledgement from the Ombudsman with a complaint number, a log number which gives you the reference number for that complaint. If they contact the Ombudsman's office and give him that log number, they should be able to tell them what's happening in terms of progress. But certainly the people who've complained should have had a formal acknowledgement from the Ombudsman, and they would be given that unique number, that complaint number, for reference purposes, so they could follow that up.
I don't think that happened, Gareth.
Right. Well, like I said,
I think the clerk has some information now, but the people who complained certainly didn't have a number and a reference that they could refer to.
Like I said, I'm aware of a complaint because I've been notified of it, and that was the complaint that I mentioned last time as being ongoing. Now, whether these are other complaints, I don't know. But if they have submitted a formal complaint, then they should have had an acknowledgement, and they should have been given a reference number.
If they haven't had that, who do they contact?
The Ombudsman's office. If they go online, the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales, go on the website, and there's a contact number there. But like I said, the complaint forms are on, and you can submit the complaint online, and it goes directly into their complaints box.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And the second question is, if people aren't happy with the Ombudsman's decision, can that be taken further than the Ombudsman?
No, there's no Ombudsman for the Ombudsman, unfortunately. If he gets it wrong legally, then obviously they could go for a judicial review. But no, the Ombudsman's decision is final in terms of that investigation and whether it merits investigation.
Okay, because the last decisions he made, people weren't happy with that. They thought there was a case to answer, but
and nothing. There's nothing we can do. You see, I mean, yeah. So there's nothing we can do because standards committees and adjudication panels can only deal with cases that are brought to them by the Ombudsman. Unlike the English system, we can't independently investigate. So all complaints of this nature go to the Ombudsman first of all, and his decision is then final as to whether there's an investigation. If he investigates,
I thought that was the case, and that's what I passed on to the person concerned. But I was just wondering if there was a further track past the Ombudsman where we could question his decision or not.
Not on the merits of it. If like I said, you can always bring a legal challenge. You can bring a judicial review in the High Court if you think the Ombudsman is wrong in law. I wouldn't recommend that because I mean, obviously that's a costly process. But there's no higher adjudication, if you like, in terms of the Ombudsman's decision. That's his statutory role. You know, he's the gatekeeper in terms of the initial sift of these complaints. So his decision is final on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Gareth. So moving on from there, if there's no other comments on that, I can't see anyone else's hand. Any other business? Now, obviously, I suppose it would come to the chair initially, but it's probably gone to you, Gareth. So anything from yourself? Anyone's put anything through?
Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And finally, the date of the next meeting we've got is the 15th of July, 2021. Gareth and Pam, will you be issuing a time now, or are we getting near the date to look at the time for it?
The time is normally 5:30 if that suits. I mean, if that's convenient, but we can change the date and time if that's more convenient for members.
I mean, that date's fine for me, and the time. I just obviously we didn't want to because there's no time on the agenda. On the minutes I'm looking at here for the agenda. 5:30 is fine for me. For those members who are still on the panel, it's still the same for you.
Yeah.
Fine.
If it's not broken, let's not change it. Yeah. From there. Okay. On that note, then, thank you all very much for this evening. Obviously, moving forward, who knows when the next meeting, if the next meeting will be in person or by this method or whatever. Interesting, and thank you for that update, Gareth, about being able to use a room in the civic centre to join any of those sort of meetings. That was good from that side of it. Nothing else from myself. So on that note, if no one else has got anything, good night. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you all on the 15th of July. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.